Call the meeting to order. The North Hunterdon-Voorhees Regional High School District Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026. Not June 23rd, July. All right, how about that? Let's start this over, and why don't I open the correct agenda? Can I borrow that for a second?
Of course.
All right, until I get it
Hope it's
open.
the right one, my printed.
Yes, the North Hunterdon-Voorhees Regional High School District Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, July 21st, 2026 is now called to order. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10-4-6, adequate notice giving the time, date, location, and to the extent known, the agenda of this meeting was sent to the Hunterdon County Democrat, Star Ledger, and Courier News on January 7th, 2026, and published on January 12th, 2026. In addition, notice of this meeting has been posted at North Hunterdon High School and Voorhees High School, provided to the municipal clerks of Bethlehem Township, California Borough, Town of Clinton, Clinton Township, Franklin Township, Glen Gardner Borough, Hampton Borough, Highbridge Borough, Lebanon Township, Tewksbury Township, and Union Township, as well as other interested parties, and posted on the legal notices section of the district website. Fire exits are located in the direction indicated. If alerted to fire, please move in a calm and orderly fashion to the nearest smoke-free exit. Restrooms are located through the door behind this desk and to the right as indicated. At this time, please silence all cell phones. I do just want to read the mission statement before we begin the meeting. The North Hunterdon-Voorhees Regional High School District empowers all students through innovative and personalized learning to achieve their full potential, embrace lifelong learning, and continue responsibly to a changing world. Roll call.
Ms. Ayers? Here. Mr. Chapman?
Here.
Mr. Hanley is absent. Ms. Hintz?
Here.
Mr. Lordy?
Here.
Mr. Matthews?
Here.
Ms. Mezzacappa?
Here.
Mr. Morgan?
Here.
Mr. Ray is absent. Mr. Stanton?
Here.
Ms. Stein? Here. And Mr. McIsaac?
Here. Flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, tonight is our working session, so there will not be action on these items, but we'll go through the agenda in preparation for next week's action meeting. First item is our minutes from June 23rd. Did anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes from the June 23rd meeting? All right, that brings us to the Chief School Administrator's report.
All right, thank you, Brendan. So the first thing I wanted to talk with everybody about was our attendance data. Remember last month we did not have the attendance data to talk about May, and then of course June was over at that point as well, but we didn't have everything tabulated. So as a reminder, we changed our attendance policy last year. We made it a little bit more stringent as to what was excused or unexcused. And overall, I'd say it was a pretty big success. North Hunterdon ended with a 5.5% absentee rate. Voorhees ended with a 4.7% absentee rate. That's far below what the state considers chronic absenteeism, which is a 10% threshold. If you remember, for years, I believe that last year we had reported was 14-some% at North and 21-some% at Voorhees. So dramatic differences. We did have some growing pains in the beginning, but I think it was well worth all the effort that was put into it. So
Great.
I would say successful program, and we're glad that it worked out.
Any tweaks? Or
Now, I think the tweaks that happened were things that once parents realized that there was discretion with the principal, that they could go to them and talk about their specific circumstance, and that the principals had that authority to grant exceptions to for those situations. That's what people didn't understand at the beginning. They saw a set of rules. They said this is going to be terrible. Once they realized that set of rules was going to apply to 98% of their situations, but the 2% that were reasonable or didn't, it worked out. So
come to your same policy?
continue what we're doing.
Okay.
Right, Mike?
Yes.
Mike's in charge of our attendance. So. I also just wanted to bring something to everybody's attention. Tara does not like to pat herself on the back, but she did share with me that she was selected for the National School Boards Association's inaugural Policy Leadership Cohort. She was accepted into the Special Education Governance Track, which is a 6-month leadership program that brings together board members from across the country to strengthen policy leadership, deepen our understanding of IDEA, advance inclusive practices, and explore data-driven strategies to improve outcomes for students with disabilities. So, very excited for Tara. I didn't even get to share that with Jen yet, so Jen heard it for the first time tonight as well. But I think that's going to be a great opportunity for you, and I can't wait to hear
I'm
what
excited.
back to us.
Yep,
Is there
thank
anything else
you.
you want to share about the program? Or?
No, I'm looking forward to it, and if anyone wants to come down to Washington DC on January 30th for the celebration of after the 6-month session, come down, we'll have fun. January 30th. So,
Wow.
yeah, thank you.
That's great.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's it's dear to my heart. My youngest child has Down syndrome, so, and this district has been pioneering since I went to school here back in the late 70s, early 80s. All of our students, neurodiverse and students with disabilities, have always been embraced and given the right tools and supports to succeed. So I'm happy to carry that on and bring it forward into this,
And
coming
represent it at a
future.
national level.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
huge. It's
Awesome.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next on my list is strategic planning update that I want to go through with everybody. First, I want to say that my plan was to develop a PowerPoint, a traditional Google Slides presentation, go through all the different goals and talk about percentages and things like that. And I was about halfway done with that, probably closer to 3/4, and then G came to me with what he's been working on our new website development, what will be our website. And he said, hey, I did some dashboards that I want you to take a look at, one of them being a strategic planning dashboard. So I'm going to use that tonight. So this is sort of a preview of what everyone will see in the public for our strategic planning dashboard. And then I'm going to use that to talk about the progress tonight as well. So that's why I got this up here. So the first thing I want to talk about is the methodology as to how we came up with these scores. And you'll see what I mean in a minute when you see the progress. So we have our Strategic Planning Advisory Committee that was formed this year to evaluate and determine what progress we're making towards the strategic plan, and also provide us with input as to what we should be doing to improve our district based on our strategic planning goals. We met once a month. It was a very lively group. We had a lot of great discussions, and we got a lot of great ideas. So at the end of the year, I asked this group to use a Google form that I developed, which was basically aligned with the key point indicators of our plan, which is the action plans of from the plan. And I asked them to tell us, based on a standard 5-point Likert scale, how much progress did they think was made on each key point indicator. Then we took that score from that 5-point Likert scale and we converted that into a percentage complete for the progress dashboard, and that's what's going to be presented tonight. So you'll see this progress on our action items, objectives, and goals. So, and let's scroll up here so you can see what we're talking about. So this will be our strategic planning page. So you can still have access to our full plan. These are over 5-year goals for our strategic plan. And this is the part G has been working on. So I'm going to start with pillar number 1, instruction and programming. So pillar number 1 was to develop curriculum and programs to improve student achievement through data-driven, student-centered instruction that fosters critical thinking and lifelong learning. And under goal number 1, there was 3 objectives. Now before I go further, let me just point out over here on the left. So overall, for goal number 1, pillar instruction, the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee felt that we made 51% progress towards the goals and objectives in that goal. Okay? That data came from these 3 objectives, which, as you can see, objective 1, to enhance curriculum and instruction to prepare students for the future. They felt like we made about 45% progress towards that goal. Objective 2 was to strengthen career pathways and opportunities for all students, about 39% progress. And objective 3, to foster a positive and supportive school environment focused on student well-being and school and community engagement. Underneath that, we have all of our action indicators. And these are the actionable items that allowed us to obtain that objective. And as you'll see, I'm not going to go through each one of these and read each one because that's sort of the details of this. But I want you to understand that that's these 4, in this particular objective, these 4 action items, showed up to average out to be 45% progress for that objective. and so on and so forth through the rest of these. Objective 2, these 3 indicators, and then objective 3 was these 3 indicators. And you can see there was, let's use an example, opportunities for clubs and activities that meet students' needs and interests. 83% of the committee felt like we accomplished, or they felt like we accomplished 83% of that action item during that first year. That's a lot to do in 1 year, right? You wouldn't think in a 5-year plan you're going to accomplish 83% or something, but I think we already had a system in place for that, and we improved on it a little bit, and that's why that got a high score. If you look at other areas like providing experiences for career exploration and for career opportunities in the field of education, we only had 30 or 33% progress. You know, that's on the lower end. So that's what we use this data for, is to focus on what we're going to improve on next year. We're going to look at things that we didn't make as much progress on and try to continue that work to make sure we're progressing on that. Just to give you some examples of success for goal number 1, the Future Ready Learning Committee is something that Rich Brown put together. It was a really successful pilot. They came up with a lot of great ideas they shared with all of our faculty and staff, and that is going to turn into what we're going to be doing this year with that Future Ready Learning initiatives. We had things like a bridge building competition with our sending districts. You know, that allowed the hands-on activities that is part of this as well, not just about the AI and computer usage, but using your hands and authentic learning. And we're able to do that with our middle schools and bring them up so that they're even more prepared when they come up. And our students work with them when they do that. So it's a win-win for everybody. We had our AI resource library that was put together, not only for teachers to take resources from or find resources, but to add resources to so that they can share that with their colleagues as well. We evaluated tools like Google Lens, and we provide professional development in AI and authentic learning, just to make sure that we're using the tools in the right way, and to make sure that the tools are something students will use to improve on their success, not just make their life easier. And then some areas for growth that we took from this, as we just talked about, was providing internship and career exploration, both in and out of the education sector. I think that's something that we're going to really focus on this year, is trying to find ways to get kids to connect with our community, businesses, and also make sure they understand what kind of careers they can have in education. Being a teacher is a great goal, and that's what I think a lot of students aspire to. But there's a lot of other careers in education, HR, facilities. There's a lot of we have a lot of components in this district that require this organization to run the way it is. So making sure that they understand that it's not just being a teacher. There's a lot of ways you can be involved in public education. So, any questions on any of the format here so far? Because the next 4 pillars are pretty much going to be just what I did on the one.
Right?
Because you're just introducing this just for the first time, do you say somewhere, or will it say somewhere, who evaluated? I think it would be useful to know the origin of the numbers.
Sure. So I can share with you the members of the Strategic Planning
It's not to
Advisory
me, it's to the people who are going to look at this online. Have some place, even if it's not names, if
Yeah.
it's, here's how we came up with
So
these
an
scores.
explanation of how these scores were obtained.
Right, they're
Methodology.
Sort of like
hidden
at
in
the beginning here with the methodology.
Yeah, maybe it's already there, and you just.
I don't think we have it on the website, but that wouldn't be a bad idea to add that on there just to explain it
Yeah,
on the
this is
site.
the opinion of
Introduce.
some professionals who
Yeah.
were part of an advisory committee that met monthly over the year. And you don't need to go into the scale and how we got the numbers and that, but just the origin of it. This
Sure.
is not just you
Yeah,
putting numbers, or G putting numbers on the.
absolutely, yes. Yeah, and we have the data for that. It's a Google form. The nice thing with the Google form is I was able to collect all that data and then do the averages and
Yeah,
all those things.
sure.
And it was
Yeah.
a great way to get these numbers.
To me, just to be clear, it's not important that you say, I average these numbers to get these numbers, all that. It's just, where did the raw data come from?
Sure.
It came from these professionals and their opinions.
Okay.
And even if you don't have names, it's like, 6 teachers, 3 administrators.
And that's what I can do, is I can put it into groups based on what representation is from each school and what their roles are in school. Yeah, without a doubt. So the next pillar is personnel. And this was actually our lowest scoring overall for our progress. And again, I'm not going to delve into a lot of detail on each one of these because this is going to be live on a website, and I can actually share this with all of you tomorrow, so you'll have access to it tomorrow, and then the website's hopefully going to go live, I think, probably by the end of the month, beginning of next month. But it's the same idea. You can, again, scroll, move down into the different objectives and determine what percentage progress was made, and then again, how that progress was made based on the action items that were in there. So, some things that we identified as examples of success, and again, these indicators show that, is things like Spirit Weeks, that typically used to be for students, and we started including staff members in that. So staff members would dress up in the same kind of, wear your favorite jersey for your favorite sports team, or pajama day, or, things like that, everybody got into, and then took it even further. They had like pumpkin painting contests and professional development classes that like the art teachers were giving on how to do ceramics and paint those ceramics and then fire those in the kiln. And they did that for their colleagues. So there was a lot of activities around that school spirit that were very successful this year, and I think that helped a lot of these scores. Our staff health and wellness initiatives are something that's funded through our school health and insurance fund, which is our medical insurance company, but we get a grant from them each year. And we brought in people to do nutritional analysis. We had massages again. We also had biometric testing for people to look at different health factors they could focus on. And then also just the staff newsletters to highlight accomplishments. We in addition to the newsletters that you've all seen, and you might get them as well if you're on our staff list, but we asked our staff, what have you done and what are you proud of, not just in the school, but outside the school? Have you run a marathon? Did you get your master gardening certificate? Did you, there are lots of things that people do that they're proud of and they want to share with their colleagues. So we developed a newsletter that we could collect that information and share it with the rest of the faculty and highlight what these individuals were doing. And then last was the BOE staff spotlight, which you all saw from, I believe, March on, was recognizing staff members that go above and beyond in our district, and finding a way to recognize them without bringing them out another night to pat them on the back, right? And some of them wanted to come out anyway. But we used our student board reps to meet them in their classroom with their students and recognize them in front of the people that matter to them, their kids and their colleagues. And I think that really worked out great.
I think that decision in particular was a really good one.
Yeah, it was, and again, I wish I could say it was an original idea, but it's the way we announced the Teacher of the Year in school every year. And that was always such a great opportunity. I was like, why can't we do that for the monthly members?
I did have a question.
Yeah.
For the personnel, a lot of it's educationally focused, so on teachers or paraprofessionals, social workers, stuff like that.
Yep.
Have we looked at ways to kind of empower the support staff, so like janitors and cafeteria workers and stuff like that? Like, have we looked at a way to recognize what they do to support the happenings every day in the school? Because they're part of how and why the school runs so efficiently. They make sure that everything is prepared for students, for teachers, and so how can we kind of like support and kind of like embrace the things that they do to help make the school function?
Without a doubt. And, that's not part of our strategic plan, because when we got our stakeholders together and everybody talked about what was important to them and what should be in this 5-year plan, that's not something that came up. But I can tell you that, personally, when I walk into buildings, I know the custodians, I talk to them, they always know that they can ask me questions. I get emails from them sometimes about things. Sometimes I have to defer them back to someone else. But what I try to start from my office is, an open door policy, right? Like that, we're all in this together. Mm-hmm. We're all part of a team to make sure that we're going to accomplish what's good for kids, and that means making sure the classrooms are clean, making sure that the forms are ready for your parking permit and your transcript requests and things like that, and then also what's happening in the classroom. And obviously in the school we focus a lot on that classroom, but there are a lot of other moving parts around that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would like for us to maybe, not related to this obviously because the strategic plan's already set in place and in motion, but at some point maybe look at
some way to acknowledge the work that those workers do within the schools.
On a monthly
Absolutely.
basis, yeah.
Well, it's interesting, Nicole, because I think one of the questions I initially had were, what are some of the specifics behind these things? And as Rich is talking, I realize these are the things that we often get in our weekly updates or at the meetings, the specific actions there. And I was sort of curious, as folks who are working on this steering committee are assessing the progress they're making, whether or not they have a goal in mind and whether or not something like personnel is, to have an impact on all staff or something to that effect. And I guess there's nothing to say that might not be something that evolves anyway out of that. I don't know if there was a specific end goal in sight for these that the committee was assessing us against.
So again, the purpose of this committee is to assess our progress on the strategic plan and also provide guidance, as to how we should continue to improve our district to meet these
Right.
goals and objectives. That's a great thing to focus us in a direction, but we do so many things every day that are
Right.
not mentioned in here.
Right.
Right? And so some of those things are recognizing, all of the important people in our district and making sure that we do that on a regular basis. So again, this is part of what we do, not everything we do, but
And understand, you can't cover all bases with it, it's, whatever,
Yeah.
what specifically needs to be
I think-
attended to, but.
I think there comes a point where if a strategic plan gets too big and there's
Yes.
too many goals, then you end up getting mired down in the,
Mhm. In the
nothing gets
weeds.
done.
Yeah.
So,
Rich?
Just specifically for this pillar, are these percentages indicative of any kind of like staff-wide feedback, or is this all still just from the steering committee? Are there surveys to the staff or anything like that? Are you getting any kind of feedback?
So one of the
across
things-
board?
One of the things there was 2 surveys actually so all this feedback is directly from the members of the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee, but they didn't rely on just their own experience.
Okay.
So there was the school climate inventory, school climate improvement survey that we do every year through the state of New Jersey. It's a partnership between Rutgers and the state. I think I mentioned it in something. But basically, there's 3 groups that are surveyed with that school climate survey. One is students, one is staff and faculty, and one is parents. And the data for the faculty was shared with the committee, and they were able to look at that and evaluate that to make their decisions. They also did their own survey internally, just with the members, and then they also had the association did a survey, a school climate survey, that I know they had access to the data, they weren't able to share it with me yet, because they didn't compile everything by the end of the school year, but I anticipate getting that at the beginning of the school year. And I know that some of them had that data already, so I think they used that also to guide there. So a lot of data this year.
Yeah.
More data than we typically have. I would say the school climate improvement survey is probably what we rely on the heaviest.
Okay.
So Rich, to Rich's point, I guess this is good data to have. At some point, how do you dial down to the why behind it? Like, obviously, what the district is doing to help this improve is great, but there's got to be a common denominator at some point. That's why we didn't make the progress that we would probably like to see, right? There's got to be a way to capture that and then address it, right?
That's what we talk about in the committees.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what our meetings are, is talking about the data and the things that we're experiencing and how can we improve on that. And so if there is something that is that's scored low here, again, this is year 1 of the plan, right?
Yeah.
So now we're going to go back at the beginning of the school year, we have a starting point. We didn't have a starting point last year. So now we have a starting point to look and really evaluate, what kind of progress we made and why we think we made the progress and what we can do to make even more progress, And again, some of these things might take 5 years. Some of these might be done next year.
Yeah.
You might say, we completed this, we accomplished this goal. This is something that is in place now and will be. So again, some of these things are going to be quicker to come to fruition and others are going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think as long as you're seeing progress over a year-to-year basis, like even if you do these, like in the business world, right? Like the same common themes come up. People, no matter, you could have the best company on the planet, people are not going to be satisfied with compensation, benefits, et cetera, overworked and underpaid, right?
Yeah.
But not saying that's the case here, but you're never going to achieve 100%. But as long as there's progress every year, I think that's a step in the right direction.
And I think, a true 5-year plan, even at the end of it, if you accomplished everything, you know, you probably didn't set your
Correct.
sights high.
I would agree with that.
I think, a satisfactory, progression should be that you meet most of your goals, not all of them, or at least most of some of them, right?
Right. As long as there's like a mechanism in place to catch what maybe would be a common denominator, I think that would be a big takeaway from this.
So that's what the committee's purpose is, and that's what we do on a monthly basis. And even when I say a monthly basis, that's our formal meeting, but we have a shared Google Drive that we all have edit access to, and sometimes they're dropping things in there, they're giving me ideas, they're finding things that they found that they thought would benefit the group, and it's sort of an interactive process all throughout the month as well. So. Pillar 3 is our fiscal management. Overall, they thought that we made 53% progress on that. Some of the things that scored very high on this, I'll just open these up so you can see some of these. Established clear budget timelines, 60% we felt like 60% progress was made on that. And then anything above 50 I thought was like good for year 1. And also to continue to examine out-of-district placements and expand our current in-district programs. That's kudos to our special education department for recruiting people to come to those programs, and also making sure the parents know how good our programs are to keep kids in district. And then some of the successes from that were participation in our county's school board events. Katie was part of a roundtable at the beginning of the school year that I think many of you were at, with other BAs from the county that were able to ask questions, talk about budget process, and really inform and educate board members on that process. And then I think the way we approached the budget this year, having multiple presentations starting in January, February, and in March, and then in April, to really, take sections and narrow down and make sure everybody had ample opportunity to ask questions and talk about it. And this was one of the most difficult budget years I can remember in recent history, and I think we managed it very well. And I think the whole board, did a great job, just working with everybody and understanding, but also, asking questions, and great questions. And then obtaining grant funds. That's the other thing. We had about, in the last 3 years, so it wasn't just this past year, but this year we finished up projects, about $6.5 million of HVAC projects that we were able to get funding from the state on. And I think that's huge. So those are some of the success areas. And then the areas of growth that we're going to continue discussions around shared services and regionalization. Later on the agenda, I think you all know at this point, but we were approved by the state for a school regionalization efficiency program grant. So if we accept the funds next Tuesday, then I'm able to sign the form that says we want to move forward, and then we do an RFP for a consultant and look at what we can do regionally to increase efficiencies. And it might not be regionalization in a K-12 environment, it might just be shared services. But someone will be able to go out and study that and give us the data to show why we can save money at that, doing that. Or make education more consistent throughout the district as well. The study will look at 2 things, the educational efficiencies and also the fiscal efficiencies. So.
What was the timeline for that study?
So they say a year to a year and a half once the vendor is awarded, and just because of the size of our district. I had to, I forget who I was talking to the other day, but I had to ask Gemini who has the largest board in New Jersey. And at first it came up with Newark, and it said Newark because that was like the biggest school district. But I believe I still have it up here, and the exact wording when I said, what public school district has the most members of the Board of Education in New Jersey? It said the public school district widely recognized as having the largest Board of Education in New Jersey is the North Hunterdon-Voorhees Regional High School District, which features 12 board members and has historically sat as many as 13. It didn't know that might go back to there again. But my point is that, it was just fascinating that,
Of all places.
Yeah, now again, that's one source, so I wouldn't say that we're the only, but I don't know of another district that has 12 board members. It's typically, and it does give, it's typically 9, but there are boards with 3, 5, or 7 as well, and it's all based on charters and things like that. So I think that the reason I bring it up is that the timeline is a lot longer than it would typically be because of the size of our district and the amount of places they have to collect data from.
Yep.
And that's why the award, when I saw the award for, you know, what we put in for the grant, I was like, wow, that's what it's gonna cost. And, but it's a lot of work, so that's why.
Rich, the strategic advisory committee, has had discussions around that study's happening, regionalization is being studied.
So most of our discussions revolve around articulation, which is just making sure from an educational
Okay.
perspective that students are prepared when they come from 8th grade and 9th grade.
Okay.
And so we have had those discussions, but Katie actually came presented at one of our strategic planning advisory committees too to talk about the budget process. And, you know, when we talk about the budget process, it always comes up that, well, this is just our budget 9 to 12. And then we talk about the percentage of the K to 8, like when you look at your taxes and, you know, all the things we talked about, we covered that a little bit, not as in depth.
Would you say there's any vibe from that committee that's supportive or not supportive of the?
I wouldn't say that they were leaning either way. I mean, we didn't really talk about the regionalized system. But I do know that within their content area, obviously the math teachers that are on there, they want to make sure that their students are prepared coming up from the 8th grade, so that they don't have to spend time in 9th grade getting them all on the same page. They want to be able to start and say, here's what you need to know by the end of the year, and here's how we're going to get there, and here's my plan, my scope and sequence. If that gets messed up, teachers tend to, they adjust, but they would rather do what they have planned. So.
Rich, the size of the board is directly related to the amount of descending districts. That's the only reason
That's
we
the
have.
only reason it is
It's not the
legislative code.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Because there are much larger school districts in the state.
Right.
Newark had 41,000, that's, again, the first question I said, what was the largest board of ed in New Jersey? And Newark has 41,000 students, but
Right.
how many board members they have?
3?
Nine.
Yeah.
Nine.
Yeah,
Yeah, 9.
so.
And they're
They
So
probably
appointed,
do it by ward or something.
and they're appointed, not elected, I think, in Newark. They don't have public voting on
But
it.
even the larger school districts, like at Bridgewater, Raritan, a lot of K-12s, that are very large school districts, they still have 9 board members.
Yeah.
It's because of the amount of Senate districts we have. That's what it comes down to. All right, so that was objective 3. Objective 4 was operations. This was the second to the lowest pillar that we scored on, but 45%. And I can scroll down through these so you can see some of the percentages. This one was one of the few, I think, that we had a 20% on, which, again, isn't terrible progress. In a 5-year plan, if you made 20% every year, you're going to meet your goal. But when I looked at some of the other numbers, 20 wasn't what we were striving for, right? I saw that as a lower end idea. And, the things that scored only a 20% progress were modernized instructional places to meet the needs of our students and staff. Again, we have old buildings, North being much older than Voorhees, but Voorhees not being a young building. I mean, it was opened in 75, right?
Mhm.
So, it's getting up there as well. And, facilities is something we do pay attention to, but I think it's aesthetically, it still looks like an old building, right? Voorhees looks a lot newer than North, but doing things to make it feel like, a newer building, I think, are going to be important, and that came out of the data. Things that we-
Rich, I think that's an interesting point that you bring up. So you're saying that you're not satisfied with a 20% progress, right?
Well,
When in all reality, I think you make a fair point that if the goal is to reach the target within a 5-year plan, you're on pace.
Without a doubt, and if
I think that's fair.
I had the assurances that I know we're going to have 20% more
Right,
each year, right?
right.
That's where I like the front loading a little bit.
No,
for me,
I
I'd like to have a
understand
little
what
bit
you're
of
saying.
comfort. But yes, I agree.
And how
not
is this
bad.
going to be measured next year?
Well, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say, listen, this is what we talked about. This is what your opinion was last year on how far you think we came. Do you think we made more progress? Do you think we stayed stagnant?
So for example, that says 20%. Let's say there's progress of, 20%. Is that going to say 40%
That would say
next year?
40, yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And I'm going to have to reword the questions because now we're going from, we started off at 0, and next year we're going to say, well, we're starting off here. How much more do I think we made?
Right.
So, but some areas of growth for programs and infrastructure were, the biggest ones that showed up in the data were improvements in student attendance, which we talked about, and in physicals and IT security. So both scored very high. The students feel safe in our buildings with the amount of security we have, and also the measures we have in place for our IT security, everyone felt that we're very safe. that comes down to like some of the phishing campaigns and things that we do to the staff to try to educate them. I think they feel like we're always trying to make sure that they're safe. And you hear stories about what happens online for people, and
The school district shut
It's-
down. because
yeah, there are districts that have been, we had one in the county that had to shut down for a little while because they were ransomware. And,
Yeah, can you put me on that training list? I flunked 2 of them at work. So throw that out. It's a good story. I had to
Actually,
take a class.
you are on that list, and you might not have
Yeah,
just
you are.
randomly got one, but we have had board members that have got them, and I've sort of cringed a little bit, like, sorry, but it is part of the thing. And there's nothing that gets hurt, it's used as a training thing, right? If you click on a link, it says, hey, this could have been, and it gives the reasons why, right? Gee, it's an explanation, it's meant as an educational tool.
Yeah, I clicked on it and it said, gotcha. I swear to God.
I don't think we use the word gotcha, but.
Mine did.
So governance was actually the highest percentage of progress that we made, and I was actually a little shocked on this because the committee, this talks about the board. This board is, the biggest part of governance, right? And I don't think this committee had a lot of exposure to the Board of Ed, but we did talk about the Board of Ed and your role and your support and the things that you do, and I think so that I think whatever we talked about, that's where they got this data from and what they decided were their strengths and weaknesses. And some of the things that were very high here, develop and maintain our advisory committee. Obviously, we're happy we did that, and we feel like we're 75% there, right? I think everyone was hesitant to say we did it and it's done. Let's make sure we do it in year 2 and just don't forget about this now. But there were things that were very important here too that I wanted to make sure were brought up.
Rich, say something said 100% in year 1. Does it stay on there?
Oh yeah, it would stay on there, and it would just say it was complete, and it would be complete at that point. But I think, report annually to the Board of Education about academic achievement and student successes. That was the part I was looking for. I think, again, the committee members, they see what we do at board meetings. They might not watch the whole board meeting, but they hear about it. There's usually someone from the association who is watching our meetings to make sure that they're informed on what's happening in the district and decisions the board's making. And I think that people talk about that. So members of the committee know that this board is supporting them, that they're making decisions that are in the best interest of students. And I think when they see that, that's why they score these things high. So some of the things that I took away as examples of success were improved communications with all stakeholders. That would be the additional newsletters and sending district articulation groups that we set up. And then, of course, the board support for a rigorous curriculum. And then areas for growth were to review board policies and regulations for effectiveness. And that was one of the ones that I think scored in the 30s here. Yeah, this was right here, annual review of administrative procedures. So.
I would argue you could go backwards.
Oh, you could.
You could go backwards on this.
You could. I mean, if you weren't continuing the progress, I guess it would, like,
Right,
for
right.
instance,
I mean, it would be a pretty bad thing to do to make progress and go backwards on it, but it's not like it's impossible. If you stopped all these newsletters that you started,
yes,
then the next time the score should be,
Communication.
well, it's not so good anymore.
Right.
they could, absolutely. Yes, and I think most of our, I think we did structure most of our action items to be things that would be recurring, right? And so if it's a recurring thing,
Yeah,
you
the way
could
these
go
things
back.
are written,
If
they're
it's
not-
an action item that we need to accomplish this, once you accomplish that,
Yeah.
there's some things that, then you can't go back. But I agree with you, most of these are written in a way that you could regress if you didn't continue.
Let's hope not, but.
Yeah.
Would you be able to show progress, like this was last year's and this is this year's, so that if there was a regression, it would be easy to see? Because if I saw next year's number, I might think, oh, it was 45 last year, it's still 40, we're still kind of on track to, hitting it in our 5-year. So,
I think you just have a different color.
Yeah, you could add a
Yeah,
color
color
to the
each year.
completing
Right,
the
that's
circle.
5,
Yeah.
years.
And that's why I said I'm going to revise the
Yeah.
questions next year, so that we're
Right.
going to say, we started here. Do you
Right.
think we're still there? Did we make any more progress, or do you think we regressed? And there might be some things that we might show some regression on. And to be perfectly honest, if that happened, that's something we'd have to address in that coming year then, to make sure that we made up the regression and then also move forward, so.
you could have, personnel changes that lead to
But I know, one of the things that I know the board has asked for is, some type of dashboard to report this progress. This idea is for strategic plan, goals, objectives, and action items. I know we're going to do some other dashboards like this to report on district goals. We can do it for board goals. So it's just, I thought it was a great aesthetic tool. I thought it was easy to scroll through and navigate. I like Brian's idea of adding, how we came up with these numbers so that people know that these aren't just made up numbers. They were developed through a committee of professionals within our district. And then again, as we see ways to improve that and further inform people on this data, we'll do that. We'll add things to the website. I think you're all going to be very excited to see the full website. I'm not going to spoil anything, but that's a general.
Good job, G.
Yeah, I think it looks great. It's
Yeah.
very interactive, and
Thank you.
it's going to explain it very well with the infographics and everything. You can click through it to
Yep.
get to the next thing. I think it keeps it engaging, so it's not
Yeah.
just people aren't going to get bored. And it's very direct and to the point. I think it's
Yeah.
perfectly put together.
It's very user-friendly.
Thank you.
Yeah, very
Yeah, well,
user friendly.
thank you.
Jay,
You did a
good
great
job,
job.
Jay.
Good job, G.
Like I said, he saved me at least a quarter of my Google slide presentation. So,
Is there a time frame for this going live? Is it for the school year? Is
I
it-
think G wanted it last Friday, but I told
Okay.
him I told him we wanted to check a couple things. We just want to do some due diligence to make sure we're
Okay.
checking all the links, making sure that things are. I think he's pretty confident that he's ready to go.
And then as communications go out, be it start of the year or district newsletters, I guess there can be references to and pointing to this so that
Yes,
folks can find that.
that, and I also think the newsletters. We started that new platform called S'mores
Right.
that we're going to start the year with, and the advantage to that is we'll have an archive of our newsletters as well, so you can
Okay.
always go back and read them if they need to.
Great.
Do you currently use S'mores for Clayton Glen Gardner?
Yeah.
And
It's
it's a pretty good, it's very
It's a popular
straightforward, but they're able to archive previous ones on the website for you to go back and click onto.
Right.
So it's really transparent and it's really easy to use. So.
We always borrow ideas from each other, and
Yeah.
I borrowed this one from Central, because
Okay.
they actually used it, and we saw the platform go out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been easy to use and easy to transition to, and we're also pushing the buildings to use it, so that actually this year everyone's going to use it. So that all of their newsletters will have a similar look. We won't have one that's done in Canva, and one that's done in Constant Contact, and one that's done in Google Slides, and it'll be consistent. So. Any other questions on the strategic plan? Okay, then I can put this computer away. Go back to this computer. And I think the only, we don't have any action items tonight for the HIB, but there was one HIB incident that was reported in June that you will all affirm next Tuesday. And there was no additional reported HIB since our last board meeting, was after the school year. The monthly reports are there if there's any questions. And then there's also our legal notices on our website. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
I just have a few updates. One, the deadline to submit nominating petitions for school board vacancies to the county clerk's office is July 27th, 2026 at 4 p.m. Our next meeting next week will be our action meeting, July 28th here in the board office, 7 o'clock. I just want to remind the public with us tonight and those who are listening that this November there will be a ballot question in all of our constituent municipalities about adding Bloomsbury to the district. That was the reference to a anticipated 13th member. You will see a question on there supporting Bloomsbury to join us as a constituent district. My recollection is they need a majority of the votes across all of the municipalities to be accepted. I know we as a board had talked about some in the fall, some communication efforts as that vote gets closer to make folks aware as to what it means, sort of what the impact is, so that they can be informed and understand what that question is. We also have coming up the School Board Workshop 2026, October 19th to 22nd. I know a few of us have indicated and expressed interest. I don't know when the timeline on that ends. I know we have the group rate already, and I don't know if there's a further communication as far as accommodations or
If anyone else is interested, just let me know. I think
Okay.
we have up until the end of August, I think, to register, but I can let everyone know. So if you have interest, just let me know.
And then we're going to do the same thing, we'll get the hotel and then submit it, right?
Right,
Or-
you
yeah,
can book your hotel and
Yeah.
then we'll just reimburse up to
Yeah,
the daily rate.
they have there, okay, great.
Do we know when they're going to set out an agenda and timeline for
You can reach out to them and see when they
presentations and
have a
stuff?
tentative, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there should be, I think there's the framework of it right now, and they're compiling everything right now. There's the last call for
Yeah, because I've been
submissions.
checking the
Mhm.
website periodically to see if they've been putting out the times for workshops and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, they're
So,
still
okay.
compiling all that,
Okay.
so, yeah.
I will say, just from having attended in the past, I mean, the sessions are voluminous, there's a lot.
Yeah.
And whether it's, there's everything from formal sessions to like informal sort of things happening to just the convention floor where there's everything from obviously all of the vendors, but then a lot of districts have activities there as well. So really, whatever your particular interest might be, from program to facilities to you name it, I think you can find something.
Yeah, I have limited availability, so I just want to make my
See what's
attendance
Yeah.
strategic.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I think right now, I know I was planning on going, Tara, I think you were planning on going. There was somebody else who had expressed, I think, a tentative maybe interest, but maybe that was, it might have been Andrew, I'm not sure. So at a minimum, there will be a few of us there. Definitely a good experience. Any other questions on that? Brian?
None of that.
Okay.
The communication for the ballot question. So I'm just thinking, voters are going to receive a lot of information this before on, not on our issue, but on midterms.
Right.
It's going to be a deluge of information. So does that mean we just try to ride that wave and just hit people, right before the election, or are we?
Well, we had
Front of the wave?
we had discussed a little bit about our various mechanisms. Obviously, there's things like newsletters and the website. We had talked about with the back-to-school nights happening in September, that's obviously closer to the election, and you have people in the buildings. There's potentially opportunities there to connect and make sure people are aware.
Okay,
We
so
had
maybe
even
starting in September.
Yeah, I think the feeling was that sort of beginning to act in September gives us a couple of months and a couple of different mechanisms. I know we had even loosely talked about sort of a standard communication to potentially be pushed out to the municipalities
Yeah.
for newsletters or, liaising with those town councils also. Meryl?
So I think it's just really a hyper-local issue that people can separate from the deluge that is definitely coming. Are we going to have consistent messaging as a board about making a recommendation? Are we allowed to do that? And if we are, you mentioned the back-to-school nights. I mean, can we actually be front and center at the back-to-school nights, whether it's in the school at a table where, come and find out about this a ballot question?
We
I mean,
have in the past.
How much can we control
Yeah.
and really lean into it?
Well, I think at a minimum, we were talking about developing a coherent and consistent message that regardless of platform or municipality where that goes out to, that would be the same. As far as our presence and activities, I don't know where, because having worked on referendum before, I know it's often this, you can remind people that it's happening. You can give them factual information as to what the impact, the benefit may be, but you're not necessarily saying we as the board are encouraging you to vote in favor or anything else.
But the fact is, the board endorsed it.
No, I know,
Yeah.
we have, and that is a factual,
Yeah.
we've accepted it, it's moved forward to it. That might be a legal question as to where's the fine line between just reporting the facts and where things stand versus
I mean,
Well, but that's,
opinion.
it's, probably
I
is a
don't know.
legal question,
Yeah.
but maybe semantics and how it's presented, but I'm just saying if we wanted to be more active in helping to get the message across, could we be an item?
Like
at
have a
back-to-school
table at a
night?
back-to-school
We
night
have-
or something
Or,
like that.
and/or
Yeah.
at well-attended sporting events,
Right.
or,
Football games and.
I think
Andrew?
you can do that. What I've seen is it's been a committee of interested citizens who are not necessarily board members who are doing that. So that might be an approach that maybe some people from Bloomsbury or, just, it can be, and I don't think they have to be there, but that they want to coordinate that and see if they can have some information tables at events like that.
That would be great, yeah.
And I know in my prior board experience at a back-to-school night, I spoke, but again, just factually, putting out what the referendum was about. We had flyers that explained it in a little bit more detail. So just that presence and that effort, I think any of that is good. I know I had asked Andrea and Tara to think about those communication mechanisms, and as we get closer to September, maybe as we can kind of formalize that plan, begin to draft some communications and begin to push that message out.
because I do have a bit of concern that without any education around it, it's probably a no vote. If someone knows nothing about it, it's change, does it cost more money? I think it could fail without education.
A concerted
Right.
Yeah.
effort to
Yeah.
inform. Okay. Other questions or thoughts on that communication, that effort? I would say if you have additional thoughts and ideas, if you want to funnel them sort of my way to me, Tara, and Andrea, so that we can compile, that we can kind of make sure that the strategy is sort of coherent, and maybe to your point, Meryl, that we're not getting started late out of the gate, but rather sort of coming into the season with a plan as far as what that's going to be.
So Brian, I agree with Brian and Merrill. With Brian, I think we're gonna want to get this done within the next 60 days, because you're gonna want it out
Yeah.
September. So I don't think we can wait until September to start thinking about it, because we're probably gonna have a pass or two on it and change things, so that's
Right.
gonna take time. So probably should work on it, well, probably now, or in the near future. To Merrill's point, I think there's gonna be a lot of questions if we don't get the facts out there. And do I think it's gonna fail? No, I don't, but I can see why it could. So-
If you don't know, if
If
you
you
know
don't know,
nothing
right.
about it and what's.
So I think we have to have a two-pronged approach, is A, developing what the communication is gonna be, and then strategically target people, especially the ones that are not susceptible to our closest level of communication, which is gonna be parents, right? So it's gonna be the taxpayers that don't have kids in the school that are gonna be the hardest for this district to reach.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to
the
think
problem.
about.
I think last time we had talked specifically about municipalities and our K-8
Clerks.
sending districts
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, that we should probably have like a letter from, maybe it's not the board because of legalities, but is it a letter from the superintendent that is shared, or from the superintendents, a joint letter from everything, everywhere, everyone type of letter that is endorsed by the board and everyone's boards, that can be shared to everything, whether it's a Facebook group that not the board is sharing because of legality, I feel, right, but it's by the school district. It's shared from the school district, it's shared to the Clinton Township Facebook page, the Union Township Facebook page, everyone's Facebook. That's free, that costs nothing.
Right.
That's just Juliana sending it to the school, from the school's Facebook page to that page to have it posted.
Yep.
Right? Maybe it's newsletters and stuff like that. There might be a nominal fee for newsletters, right, in local communities, but some sort of consorted letter that can be shared and posted, and that's not from the board necessarily, right? But the board is endorsing, everyone's board's endorsing, but it's probably a letter from, I would feel, not the board.
So we can talk about that in our first articulation meeting that we have this coming year, but I think having that information beforehand would be in our best interest, because our first articulation meeting is until September. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrea and then Brian? Nicole, then Brian. Sorry.
I mean, I'm sure you know because you're in town, but Clinton Town sends out email notifications to their residents. So I'm not sure if other towns have something like that, but that might be something to explore, speaking to town councils, to see if they have a way to send out an email blast of a letter explaining the situation, explaining what the referendum is going to be, and just have them say, please see the attached correspondence from North Hunterdon-Voorhees Board of Ed and Bloomsbury Board, something like that.
Right.
And that goes to what you were saying, reaching out to all residents, not just parents of students in the school districts that might already know about it. This would go to all residents in the schools to be able to educate them, or all residents in the towns to be able to educate them, so that when they go to vote, they are not looking at this referendum like, they don't know what's going on.
Brian?
So I sense we should probably reach out and get the legal opinion, whatever you think that needs, so that I feel like we're a little bit walking on eggshells. Like, to me, this board wants this to happen. This is not something we're neutral on.
Right.
So, but if the lawyer tells us we need to be neutral on it, that's why we have a lawyer.
Right.
My thinking is I think we should be able to be comfortable saying the board, voted for this to happen. We see these advantages. We want this to happen. And then we have to articulate why the voters should be on board with us. But it's not, you guys do whatever you want. We don't. We're just innocent bystanders here.
Yeah.
We're
I
more
think
than
that lends more when we're going out for funds and for monies
Right.
from the taxpayers. This supposedly should be a reduction for us, or at least for the Bloomsbury taxpayers. For us, it's really not going to be an added
Directionally,
cost.
maybe better, but not enough you won't see it on the needle.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's always everyone's thing. Is it going to cost us more money? And it shouldn't cost us any more money.
Rich, maybe a suggestion, when this is drafted or you come up with your own communication, send something out to the mayors and have them figure about whatever the best form of,
And I've already
to
started
disseminate
talking
it to the
to
residents.
some of them to try to get stuff out. in
Right,
newsletters.
that's what I was referring to, is sending it to the councils for them to
Yeah,
disseminate.
yeah, I think that's great. Getting municipalities involved is going to hit everybody in each sending district, not just the people that have kids in schools.
And the last item I'm just going to mention real quick, not on the agenda per se, but I did send an email out yesterday, I believe it was, just a little update on the board goals, a resource that I'm encouraging you to go take a look at. There's some summary information there. My hope is to begin to draft something for the beginning of August to give us something to look at for August to set up for the year ahead.
Maybe to be specific, your hope perhaps is working meeting in August, we hash this out?
That we have something that,
Vote on it in the voting meeting.
ideally, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that token, district goals are out there too. I know I shared with everybody.
Mhm.
Any suggestions, let me know, but if we can approve the same goals at the August meeting instead of July.
Okay. That brings us to the public comment portion of our meeting. During this portion of the meeting, the public is invited to address the Board of Education with comments. You are requested to sign the register provided and to state your name, municipality of residence, group affiliation if applicable, and direct your comments to the school board president. While all comments will be considered by the Board of Education and a response may be forthcoming if and when appropriate, individual school board members may not respond to the speakers at the time of their appearance. The public comment period will be a maximum of 30 minutes in length unless there are unusual circumstances. You'll be allocated 3 minutes to speak, and no one will be permitted to speak more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. Please keep your comments respectful and non-defamatory and maintain the level of decorum appropriate for a public meeting where students may be present and in the audience. Do we have anyone from the audience who would like to come forward? Yes, please.
again. We're back. A couple things. I know you can't answer, so I will just give you some information that we're concerned about in regards to the main gym being named The Rave for Dave Robbins.
Name and
Oh,
municipality.
I'm sorry. Robinshire, Lebanon Township.
Thank you.
You got it.
It would help if I identified myself. A little bit of personal information again. I taught in the district for 38 years. My children, now adults, have gone through the North Hunterdon-Voorhees district themselves, and they really felt that they got a tremendous education that they were able to build on in their college years and then now in their adult life. So thankfully, all the school boards through the years have ensured that the North Hunterdon-Voorhees district does a top job of educating all the kids. First, congrats to Tara Hintz. That accomplishment of what you're going to do in Washington, D.C. is very significant, so good luck. The information tables that you were talking about for voting, for bringing Bloomsbury in, I too believe that it is essential for you all to get all the information that you can to all the residents in your municipalities. In particular, I know that email was mentioned, but the written word in the mail is often very, very good for our elderly, for seniors, for our residents in nursing homes. They like something tangible. So that's a consideration when you meet to determine how if you're going to do informational tables, excuse me, and you're going to do emails and all of that. So highly endorse that. Thank you. Moving on to naming the main gym after Dave the Rave Robbins. Thank you for taking the resolution. Thank you for hopefully reading through it. And you know, it's something that I believe all of us as a North Hunterdon family can absolutely endorse. I know that you have to consider a policy change in order to do this. And please regard and read through the policy that's going to be presented to you, because I think you will find it not only has it been well done, but it will cover all the bases that you'll feel comfortable about when you have someone to consider to be named either after a structure or after a field or after a classroom, artwork, whatever you endeavor to do to accomplish and making sure that that individual is honored by the North Hunterdon-Voorhees district. The timeline is something that I'm concerned about, because we will keep coming back. We'll come to every board meeting until we can, know that you all will heavily consider voting in favor of naming the main gym after Dave the Rave Robbins. The other end of that is a situation where we have, and my colleague here, Tony DePietra, who was on the school board here at North Hunterdon many years ago. He comes up from Delaware, and he will return tonight and go back down to Delaware. So just to let you know that he's impassioned for this. I am. We also have in attendance Dave's brother and sister, and so we will make sure that things are positively, hopefully, naming of the gym. And like I said, I know I can't ask you questions, but please consider the policy, see through it, read through it, and discuss it, please, at great length. I know you're busy, and I know you have a lot of other things that you need to get to, But it would be, I think, probably the best recommendation that you could give for someone who truly spent their entire adult life and high school life here at Northampton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I have one question. Can you answer one question? I know you're not supposed to speak.
Well, any questions? You
Is
can
there
direct
a
questions
10-year weight policy?
to me. Something I was going to say at the end is the board is currently transitioning from tutor among policy vendors. And we are in the process of looking at both the old policy as well as new policies and beginning conversation as to how to reconcile that and what we want to move forward with. We have a policy ad hoc committee who does that work. Their first meeting was last night. So there's some beginning information and conversation happening there. But they are in the process of kind of scoping out a timeline for that.
Well, I would like to say that I'm totally against that policy for one couple of reasons. I don't think I'm going to be here in 10 years, sadly to say. And I would say half of you people won't be here in 10 years either. So what's happening is, through the policy, you're denying our right to proceed with this, what we want to do. So maybe that policy should be defunct. Okay?
Name, and we didn't catch your name. And
My name's Anthony DiPietro. I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay.
Tony, sign it. You need to sign this.
any anybody else who would like to speak this evening? Okay. All right. As I said before, there will be a little bit of conversation in our policy update, but as I indicated, that subcommittee has begun to meet and is beginning to have conversation about policy, which is the natural step as to where we are right now. So thank you. All right. We're going to move, if there are no other speakers.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I'd just like to know, what's the timeline on that, as far as?
Would you like to come speak at the microphone? Okay.
I just wanted you to answer that. That's
Okay. All right. Curriculum, instruction, and technology. So we're going to move on to the next items. And I don't know if if either Rich or Rich just wants to sort of walk through those items that we have there.
Did you want to walk through these real quick, Rich?
I guess.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Everybody?
Hi, Rich.
Home instruction, we don't have that link there, but actually, I don't even know if we will have any for home instruction.
Everybody has something that's right
Everybody-
from June.
Yeah, from June.
We're very good.
The professional consultants, you can see that these are the new contracts for the 26-27 school year. So, the vendors that had their contracts for 26-27. Other things are pretty standard, out-of-district placement. We have, some of them are, you can see the tuition, the ones at the top are ones that are coming to us. So that's money that we are getting from, for those tuition agreements. And then the ones at the bottom are ones that some of our students were going out of district. So you can see the costs associated with those. We have commission for the blind, which is something that we do for students who, it's professional development for both the staff and prepare the students to be able to learn effectively throughout the school year. So it's a pretty standard thing to do with them when needed. We do have a new textbook that we have for approval. This is for AP Spanish. Where the curriculum with the AP course has changed, and this is an updated textbook. It's actually the same textbook that we have been using, but it's updated for the new course, and they changed the name. So because they changed the name of the textbook, we just want to get it approved, even though it's really just a new edition of what we're already using. The Title III Consortium is something that we do every year. We get about $1,700 in Title III funds. Title III funds help support students who are learning English. If you have under a certain amount of money, you're required to participate in a consortium. So all of 100 county schools participate in a consortium. So we still spend the money that we get from the federal government for it, but just it's done in a different way. Basically, we send them the invoice of what we purchased, and then they reimburse us for it. So it's something that we do every year. We're required to participate in a consortium to get that money. And then the last item on there is the commissioner approved highly effective educator activities. So this is something that we've been doing for a number of years. Last year was the first year that it expanded beyond the basic ones. So starting last year, I think it was, I know that we had it approved at the August board meeting last year because it came out very late. So we were able to get it just in time for the start of the school year. We actually approved it last year, the day before teachers arrived to start the school year. But anyway, in that, they are able to, so if a teacher is highly effective, rated highly effective in the 25-26 school year, instead of having 2 observations, they can just have 1 observation and then participate in another activity in lieu of the second observation, including, and if you go to the link, it's at the very bottom, there's a list of commissioner-approved highly effective educator activities. There's leading a professional development session, there's a data protocol thing that you could do, an activity for that, peer-to-peer protocols where you observe a colleague, do learning walks, things like that. There's an action research component that you can do. There's a digital capture where you record part of your own lessons and evaluate that. And there's also the reflective practice protocol, which is something that has been in place for a number of years, where the educator collects, analyzes, and reflects on the student feedback. So this is something that is available to tenured, highly effective staff members instead of a second observation. And we just need your approval in order to use those.
Off the top of your head, Rich, do you know how many teachers availed themselves of that last year?
Probably about a dozen across the district who placed with one of these. Yeah, it's a lot more work than, just having somebody come in to observe you. This is, but for your highly effective teacher, this is a really good way of improving your practice. So.
Did you get any feedback in terms of how it went or what some of the favored activities were?
A lot of
Professional development sessions, we do have a lot of people who offer to teach other people about some of the great things that they're doing. So yeah, the feedback is really positive in that it gives you a lot of feedback, and it's the reflective nature helps you become a better teacher. So yeah, they're used quite a bit, and we do get good feedback from them.
Thank you.
Sure. Are there any other questions?
Yeah. So the number item 2 and items 4, these are rates. So we've already approved the contract, is what you said. These are just like the 26, 27
We've approved
rates.
the vendor. These are the rates for the 26, 27 school year.
Approved the vendor, okay.
The consultant. Yeah, these are the rates for the year. Did you have, I'm sorry, did you have a second question?
You're just basically informing making sure the board is aware that there's new rates.
Yeah, every year we do have to approve. So we have consultants that we approve throughout the year, and we're always is for the rate for that year. And so then as we're starting the new year, there will be new rates.
On the textbook, this seems pretty straightforward. You said it's just really an updated version, one that we use. However, our policy says by law the board makes the final textbook selection decision. So we are basing our approval of that on the recommendation and the process that you are saying happens.
So So there are two teachers who teach that course, so they have both evaluated this textbook. There's a textbook evaluation for them to complete, and they rate it, and they also look at other textbooks to make sure it's the best one for their courses. So yeah, they have both completed that process.
Okay.
Yes. And obviously, the assistant principals have, confirmed that it's.
Right, I just wanted to make sure that.
There's a process.
That's the process.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Quick question. So I'm going to piggyback on Brian. I don't know if this was your question, but we were approving the vendor before the rate.
Well, we don't really approve the vendor, we approve all of it at once.
So, yeah, all of these are JME therapy. I don't think we had their rates yet, so we're just approving their new rates.
Right.
I think we already approved them at their old rates in June, I believe.
Correct.
Yes. And so this is just their July, this is their new rates that they came out with for the 26-27 school year. So you're reapproving that vendor that you already approved at a previous rate at their new rate.
Okay. So just hypothetically, humor me. What happens if they came back and gave you something crazy?
Is that, you mean for the rate?
Correct. Their new rate. Right.
Well, I'm sure Jen has a lot of people that she looks at for their services, and,
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's ever happened, but maybe it's a stupid question. I don't know.
Sure. If somebody came out with an exorbitant rate, it was at.
Right, they're approved vendor, they gave you the new school year rate, and it was something crazy, then what do you do?
in a lot of these instances, we just want to make sure we have something on hand, so we may have multiple consultants that can do the same service, but if need be, we use the cheapest one, or the most effective one anyway.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
We have multiple vendors that provide these services, but this is one.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just, you mentioned something, the Title III consortium, $1,700 is what the district gets?
Yes.
Or per student?
No, that's the total.
That's the total.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I think if it's under $20,000, then you have to participate in the consortium.
Okay.
And most of our districts in Hunterdon County get low amounts in that title.
Okay.
And so that's why it's been a consortium as long as I can remember. And Red Ink runs it.
We already spent too much time on it. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right.
That brings us to policy and school security. As I said, the ad hoc committee did have a meeting last night. There's one particular action item that we'll open discussion on, but there were a few items discussed last night. Brian, I don't know if you want to give a little bit of an overview of the meeting and the items.
Sure. Yeah, so we'll talk about the item here, but let me just mention some of the other things we did talk about. Rich updated us on the Strauss-Esme joining their policy manual, and it's going a little faster than they're exceeding expectations. So we are hoping that we'll have that for first read in August, and then second read would be then in September. And so we will almost certainly start the new school year under our current policy manual, but quickly thereafter switch back to the Strauss-Esme manual. And in the meantime, so while we're doing that, one of the things that we talked about was the policies related to honoring people associated with the district, in particular around the naming of the suggestion that we would name the gym after Dave the Rave. So we've looked at the policy we had before, in Strauss-Esme, like 2 years ago, let's say, and then the policy that we have currently under school boards, and then the news policy, the blank, the default policy language that Strauss-Esme would suggest. So our old versions, let's say 2 years ago, had gone through some iterations over boards over the years, and there was more to it than the baseline Strauss-Esme policy. Pretty short and sweet, actually. Just kind of basically the board does this. So Tara has suggested some language to adopt neither the exact language we used to have, the exact language we have under school boards today, nor the streamlined version that Strauss-Esme has as a default. And my personal opinion is it's fantastic. And I think Rich is going to get that to everybody to consider. And so what the idea would be, if the board is on board, is that would be put in part of this, adopted manual that we would do in August. So when we adopt the new Strauss-Esme policy set, that language would be part of it already. The revised, now a fourth version of this, which I think includes all the positive things that were in there before, without, for example, the 10-year waiting period.
So where in August, we would be adopting the policy that would govern the renaming of the gym.
It takes 2 readings, and so the first reading would be in August, and the second reading would be in September meeting.
Okay.
And it isn't adopted until we approve it on the second reading.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we
That's the
start
timeline. Yep.
the process in August, but we can't finish it until the second reading.
And that's really to just get our policies, the policy to a place where we think the policy is good.
Yeah.
And Brian, you can amend Strauss-Esme before we adopt, or before we fully commit to Strauss-Esme?
Yeah.
You can amend the policy what's in Strauss-Esme before Strauss-Esme is going live here, back again.
Yeah.
Am I understanding that correctly?
That's right. I mean, that I would say the
Policy 7250, here's Strauss-Esme's language they recommend. If we want this language instead, we just tell them we want this language. And then when they give us the full manual, it'll have our language.
So it could be changed before we actually go live with the entire...
We'll adopt the manual.
Be
with the
concurrent.
language.
Yeah, I think
That's what I'm getting at.
It's all, because that's what's happening, right? It's kind of they're doing a differential between what we currently have and what their boilerplate is. So that should be highlighted before we approve it, so that
Exactly.
we individually can see anything that was.
Yeah, so in theory, any of these things, any policies that we'd want to try to do that to, we could, but in practice, this is the one that's on the front burner right now. And I think the process, you can correct me, Rich, was going to be they were going to go back to our version of Strauss-Esme that we had as a whole right before we switched over to school boards.
June of
And
2021.
then look at, well, since then, June of 2025, Strauss-Esme will say, well, we made 6 recommendations to all of our members to address these things that the legislature passed, or whatever. We'll make sure those 6 things get implemented, or 12, or whatever it is, whatever number, so that it would have been like we had Strauss-Esme the whole time.
Okay.
And so this is one item that we tell them,
You kind of said,
hey,
look at
there's a
this.
special treatment we want. We don't want you to just go back to that old one. Just take this thing right on top. And so Rich will get that out to the board, and we'll have an opportunity, to look at it and discuss it if we want next week. But basically, we don't need to do a first reading until August.
But we're gonna do but we need to get support from the board so that when we get to August, we know what we're.
Yes, yeah.
We
I
can
mean,
sort of-
maybe if I could make a motion at the meeting next week, I could make a motion that we ask Strauss-Esme to include this one.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean that between then and, the first reading and second reading are still wholesome processes.
Yeah,
They're
it's
still,
not, it's just that
I
it's. it
object,
gets
or I
included,
don't
yeah.
like this, or whatever.
We have a list of, so one of those was the 3-year waiting period to re-challenge a book that we talked about, right? I don't know if that's in Strauss's standard language, but we want that in there, because as a board, we deliberated on that and decided we wanted that as part of our policy. So we'll use their language, but we're gonna make sure that that time frame is in there, right?
Right,
Same thing, the language changes we made for the parking and the
right.
transportation waiver.
All the things we've done.
All those things that we've done individually as a board, we're gonna make sure are included in that policy manual. But this one is going to be the latest one that we're gonna make sure that we're gonna deliberate on language, we as a committee, present that to the board as part of this manual, so that the board will understand the language and then approve.
So the next thing the committee will be doing as one of the items, is looking at that language and deliberating on the revision to that policy. Meryl?
So just to go back to it again, because we've had some public comment, there's been some reflection on a policy that's going to govern the issue around renaming the gym after Dave the Rave. We're going to be jump in if I'm
Yeah,
well, if
I
I'm
would say it's
wrong.
more,
I'm
it's
trying
broader
to
than,
bring clarity.
it's broader than a specific action. It's the policy that will essentially guide the district in any sort of recognitions or naming in any way, shape, or form. That's the policy that's being revisited and revised.
Yes, and so the issue of the day will fall under that
Correct.
policy.
Correct.
That we will get that to review in August and perhaps be able to adopt as the governing policy in September. And if that in fact happens, depending upon what that policy says, there can be action taken on the issue.
Resolution.
Right. It's the first step, is getting the policy in order.
I think Tara did a great job of, thinking about how that there should be some criteria. Why would we choose to name things, and is it going to last? Last this test of time. Those kind of things. But then, kind of the timing issues that have been raised is, and this is not adopted. So, but the proposal that you'll see is that we scrap the 10-year requirement, but there is a 6-month kind of waiting period or contemplation period from the time it was suggested, and it's already been suggested, for the issue of the day. The date, the gym has been suggested, and what this basic policy would say, if we adopt it, would be after it's recommended to the board waits 6 months before we take a vote. Time to think about it, time to collect data, time to hear, about the community's feeling about this. And I think that's a healthy thing, and that would apply not just to naming a gym, but to naming everything.
Yeah, I understand why there's a waiting period. I agree with you. That makes sense. But
and so we can debate, is just 6 months the right number or whatever. Maybe there's people who think, no, we should wait 10 years. I don't know. That's up to the board to discuss. But I think Tara's got a very good starting point for discussion.
So just a question about this process. So you're going to send this to us so that we have access to see this.
Yep.
But we can't, as a board, through email, discuss. So we would make any recommendations to the ad hoc committee.
Correct.
The ad hoc committee would
We'll discuss and bring
discuss and put
forward.
the language together, and then that would end up in August's first reading, and it will take into account whatever everybody's saying, and then that's when we get our chance to kind of comment on it. And great.
That's a good clarification. One last minor or thing we did was I asked Rich to take a look at, if you remember, we had this spreadsheet of items that were questions around the current policy set that we have. And the question that I asked him was, is there any other things that really need to be addressed now? Because we're going to start the school year under NJSBA. Are there any other things that we want to tackle?
Like urgent?
Like kind of urgent, like, we don't want to start the school year with these still on the books. And the answer was no.
Nothing urgent. And some of the questions that we had and some of the concerns, when I did review the stress estimate policies, it addressed those concerns.
Right.
So.
And this is good. I mean, it reinforces that, well, we did operate a whole year under the NJSBA. We didn't, the wheels didn't fall off. So, it would be hard to imagine there's a burning fire somewhere in the manual that causes problems.
Lips to God's ears.
And also, school boards came out with those updates, and I did check those. And all of those updates were also done by school board or by stress estimate within the last year, or sometimes even a little bit.
Okay. So 9.1. Hopefully everyone's taking a look at that. But this is the cell phone use issue. Internet-enabled devices is its name now, because you can have, I think maybe Dan's eyeglasses are
Flip phones, yeah.
Meta or something. But there's so many internet connected things now, they don't want to just call this cell phone. Essentially, this is a policy that was handed to school districts from the state. And this is Strauss-Esme language. What Rich did was struck the entire NJSBA version and put in what we're gonna, what Strauss-Esme would recommended as their language to implement the state statute.
So it's in reaction to the state statute, this is their language? Because I know there was some stuff in the state statute that was kind of...
So the state statute has, the state statute is very clear. We were hoping that they were going to say, well, we didn't want it to be that clear.
Okay.
Because there was, the reason this is actually coming as late as it is again, there was talk at state level that, well, this shouldn't be the same for a 4th grade classroom as it should be for an 11th grader, right? Level of maturity and how they use these devices is completely different. But the way the law is written, it doesn't matter. It is bell to bell, kindergarten through 12th, and there's no, unless the legislator changed that language, they finally, everyone admitted that, yeah, we can't change it now. And the controversy revolved a little bit around because from what I understand, the sponsor of the bill originally had it that cell phones are not allowed in the instructional space in the classroom. And that language was changed at some point near the end of the adoption of the bill to say are not allowed from the beginning of school to the end of school. And so hence the bell to bell. It was one of those things that got put through. And good or bad, I don't know if it was if that was their intention, or if it just was one of those things in a bill this size that sort of got in there and went, oh yeah, maybe we could have clarified that a little better. But regardless, the legislature requires us to have a policy that prohibits the use of cell phones from the start of school day till the end of school day.
So Steve found a number of resources related, from the state. The bill as it was passed, so that you can read the language if you want to. It's got an FAQ, it's got a whole PowerPoint presentation, a pamphlet on it. They recognize this is a lot of discussion that's going to happen as a result of this, and so they're trying to address it. But Rich will send out also a link to a folder that has all these resources. The language, this particular, when you click this link, the file you get in addition to the resources that Steve found. But essentially, we're going to go for first reading on this next week.
So it'll be in place for the beginning of the school year.
Correct. Yeah, so August 25th is our board meeting. August 27th, all of our students.
Yeah.
And one thing to remember is that this is the policy, and a resolution will follow that talks about the what, this or the how.
This is the how, and the regulation will govern the what.
So as far as, so just there's a ton of questions, is what'll happen and this doesn't really say that, so those questions will be answered later, and that's still kind of, but there's how many, you said 70 something or 40 something page resolution pamphlet
14.
to go through. There's something else,
But
all
still,
right.
yeah.
But where there's multiple different options and choices and things like that for the what, so, but there, that isn't in that information, and that's kind of up to the schools or the districts or us to decide, and the superintendent, what the what is and how it's enforced and things like that. And
like what happens if someone
Right.
breaks the policy?
Sure, right, because this is the policy, but there's very loose instruction, so to say, as to what that is and what that looks like, and it's kind of choose your own adventure almost.
Yeah, so a lot of times what Strauss does in this particular case, the schools have actually figured out a lot of these things on the how already, because we knew this was coming, and we weren't waiting until this time of year to figure out, how are we going to enforce this next year? So we've been talking about this for the last 6 months. But we didn't have the policy. We didn't have the regulations that were recommended. The regulations now came out, and we're trying to fit what we figured out into that regulation. So Strauss will typically give, sometimes in policies and regulations, but more typically in regulations, schools can choose one of these 4 options, right? And so one of the examples I can give you from this regulation was students will put their cell phones in a locked, storage area when they enter school. And in an elementary school with, K to 3, that might be exactly what many of them are doing. Other places are having storage locations in the classrooms that students have to put their phone in. Our option that we're going to pick and recommend is that students have to have their cell phone turned off and stored in their backpack or their locker for the entirety of the school day. And then if they don't, there's consequences. Now there are some exceptions to this. If you go through this policy, you'll see there's a list of exceptions for students on when they need to be allowed to use it. And so that's the other part that we're trying to do, is there's a lot of other things in that regulation on how to do that. And that's what we're...
So Rich, you said they have to turn it off and put it in their bag.
Yeah.
What about, to Brian's point, other internet-connected devices, like
Watches, yeah.
So we're gonna enforce that as much as we can. So if somebody's wearing a watch that looks like this could be an internet-enabled device.
Correct.
Or it could be just a regular activity tracker.
Correct.
Right? And so if the student isn't using it and texting on it or doing things on it, it's gonna be monitoring kids. Enforcement's gonna be not fun, to be perfectly honest. And the glasses, I'm not even sure, because I don't even know if I could tell if these glasses are meta glasses or not, right?
But the other thing too is that it doesn't seem like it's concerned with texting, because you can have, if you read in this policy, a non-internet enabled device like a flip phone, which you can text on a flip phone, and that's not internet connected. So there's super gray area, which we didn't even discuss, but I just, thinking about it through this super gray areas of it, because a watch is an internet connected device, but what internet are you accessing on that watch? Is it just the time and it's tracking your steps because it's synced to your GPS and that needs the internet? Or are you, I don't know, have it connected to your earpiece with a phone call and someone's giving you answers for a test? So could be
that's a great
very gray area, and there's no instruction of the,
What to do with those.
Some of the documents that you sent, I didn't read them end to end, but I saw the discussion about flip phones.
Yeah.
And I also saw a discussion about
Teachers?
field trips that came up
Yep,
during
correct.
our discussion. Like, well, what if, is it allowed on a field trip?
So yeah, there's a lot of different things.
There was a
Right.
certain parameter
And-
with the field trip thing, though,
Well,
wasn't it?
it
kinda
can
what
be
you brought up
allowed.
last
It has to be
night.
the superintendent designee that gives permission, or...
Right,
And it
the
was
superintendent
for a
can
certain
allow
amount.
field trips and
Yes.
stuff like that.
Nicole had a question. Or a
I
comment.
think the main concern with all of this is internet access, specifically browsers, stuff like that, and social media.
And video recording and things like
Right.
that.
Recording, yeah.
I think those are the main concerns.
I agree, I think that seems to be.
And I think that's a valid concern for any parent, whether the kid is in school or not.
Mhm.
This is just a way to get them to focus on their education while they're there. If they're gonna text, they're gonna text. But the texting can only go on so long because you're constantly looking at your phone to text.
Exactly.
So,
Not my kids.
I mean, listen, when I had a flip phone,
I have known
I
students
knew
who
exactly
texted
how
their
many
phone
times I had
Yeah.
to press the S
Uh-huh.
button to
Yeah.
get this,
My kids could do
to get S or P or Q or whatever. But I think the main concern is the access to
Social media.
the world,
and
to social
the rest of the
media and
stuff.
stuff like
Like
that.
immediate, distraction,
Right,
yeah.
so that's why there are
Absolutely.
other devices like watches, the glasses, yes, right, but the watches, it's very gray area stuff that will need to further be discussed and, probably added into resolution types of things, potentially, I suppose.
So
That's
hold on a second, I have a question. So you're saying I'm doing you now. Flip phones are allowed,
Allowed.
So,
but that's
well, they're actually, in the regulation, we can restrict that, so.
Right, they're allowed in the
I know we
policy.
talked about that last night, but we may be, I think we're
It's
gonna be able to
not
put
part
language
of
in
in
this.
the
state law.
okay.
State law.
But the reason is because the device itself can't get an internet connection. Is
Well,
that correct?
that's-
Because if
a
you have
flip
a
phone is
regular
this-
phone, it works off a cellular, same thing, you can place calls and text.
It's not like
Are they defining it as capability to reach the internet?
Yeah.
Yes. Like, so theoretically, a flip phone, like a traditional flip phone, not the new Samsung smartphone
I
flip
understand
phone,
that, yeah,
right,
yeah,
with the glass
old
screen,
school.
but a regular flip phone, you can't go on Instant Messenger, you can't go on you can't have
Correct.
ChatGPT, you can't go on a
Right.
web browser. It's just, Snake and text
Yeah.
messages and phone calls. So yeah, flip phone is in the policy from the state as a non-internet connected device. So there's like,
I have Andrea and Rich for comments.
My understanding is that the internet is password protected, or the Wi-Fi is password protected at the schools, correct? And so that theoretically only their devices that are issued by the school get on it.
Until it gets leaked, and then we have
Right,
to change
and
it.
I have heard that that is a possibility. So it seems like even that if the password's not leaked and these devices are away,
Yeah.
we're kind of also
So
we're getting a little bit more towards like shutting down the distraction aspect of it. Maybe, and I don't know if you know, Voorhees has terrible cell phone service, so I don't even know if with a flip phone if they're going to be able to,
I was going to say, Voorhees actually has been enacting this policy before it was
Right,
required
just-
for quite a while, just because of the dead zone. It's in
Dead
certain
zone.
areas,
Dead zone.
right?
I know.
But now it's going to be everywhere.
But
Rich?
I completely agree with what Nicole was saying. However, do we enter a dangerous zone when we're interpreting like the law? If we're saying, well, this is what they intend, but if the policy, because of the law, says no internet connected devices, then it's no.
Except for
internet.
school-owned devices, that is one of the exceptions.
Except for school, yeah.
Device,
But
so
as far as the smartwatches,
And
are they going to
it's-
use the internet on it? Probably
It's
not.
not allowed, but
But
the
it is an
enforcement-
internet connected device, right?
Yes.
And if that's what the law said, I just don't necessarily want to dive into us sitting here interpreting what we
Semantics.
think that they're saying. And
Andrea
I
and-
agree,
okay.
but
Yeah.
I had Andrea, Tara, then Brian.
Right, but I guess if the internet password is, protected, and they're not allowed to have their phones out, there's gonna be a lot of less, just give me the password or the sharing the phones, because you're gonna have to take your phone out, and that's probably gonna be some sort of violation. One thing I was wondering, are teachers allowed to make an exception saying for some reason want you to use your phone as a calculator in class? Or, I don't know if that happens,
I mean, if teachers,
and is that a regulation aspect, not a policy?
I don't remember in the regulation if it specifies that, but there are some exceptions.
Okay.
And
I guess-
actually, in the policy, I don't think.
Well, you always have a wild card.
There's health,
Yeah.
health tracking that's permissible
Right.
in a
It's part of an
student's.
IEP.
Right, part of an
So
IEP.
one of the exceptions is when no reasonable alternative to the use of the internet-enabled device for a specific purpose exists upon authorization by the superintendent, principal, or designee. So if there was a teacher who needed to use a cell phone to be a calculator because there were no calculators in the room and that's what they needed, there was no alternative way to do it, they could ask permission of the principal who could grant them permission to use it at that.
With the laptop.
I know.
And
But yeah.
I don't want to lose the thread. Tara, I don't know, did you have a
Oh,
comment? And I know Brian
Well,
did
no,
as well.
I've been thinking about it since we talked about it in ad hoc, and I'm making dinner, and Billy Joel's Vienna came on, and there's the line about, hang up the phone and, disconnect for a while, and I know everyone's going to look at this as a horrible thing, but maybe this policy is not taking away something, but giving our students the gift of being uninterrupted, face-to-face, being engaged, being fully present, so.
they can see it
That's-
that way.
Yeah, but I'm hoping, I know there's gonna be huge pushback and, but we have to follow what the statute says and,
From a logistics standpoint, this is going to be a lot.
oh, yeah.
But from a research standpoint, putting a policy like this in place is going to benefit students.
Yeah,
There's
yes.
no doubt.
Brian?
I just reiterate that some of the documents that Steve found address all these things, watches, classes, all those things. Not that it's language in the law, but it's the DOE interpretation of the law. But I also encourage us to think, we need to, the way I'm thinking about this is, from a mechanics point of view, is that we're going to enact policy that makes the district in line with the law. And we're not gonna, you know, the whole, New Jersey's not gonna get this right the first time.
Right.
We'll continue to talk about it. The administration will tell us what's going well, what's not going well. We'll see what the board can do over time to help the administration, you know, facilitate implementation if it needs to. And I guess eventually the legislature is going to hear an earful, and they may have something that happens, but, you know, not immediately.
I really wish, you know, I mean, this is just from a personal perspective as a parent with teenage daughters who have cell phones. There are ways to disable what you can access, and, you know, you can decide as a parent what to access and what you can't access during the school day. And you best believe that my children's phones are disabled other than emergency phone calls and texts. And I just kind of hope that the parents look at this policy and understand the reasoning behind it and kind of help us with that if they have the capabilities to do that with their children's phones.
You know, you're reminding me, and I don't know if either curricularly or counseling, because I know the counseling department sends out, I feel like each month there's some sort of topic of information they push out, and I don't know if it's in the health curriculum, but I think a lot of the concern on this is about teen health around addiction, the ability to focus, what's called the attention economy, and sort of educating kids on the power of that device in their hands. And I know it's hard, you know, rationalizing with a 15 or a 16-year-old who sees that as their social lifeline. But anything in, whether it's a counseling or a curricular health program, that can begin to educate kids about recognizing that those multi-billion-dollar companies in that device live on your attention that you give to it freely. And there's educational pathways that I think can run concurrent with that as well. Steve?
I would just like, yeah, I agree with that. Maybe part of, you know, the change and everything, because it's gonna, one of the things in the policy says that the district shall ensure that, you know, makes everyone aware of this, students, parents, teachers, and everything. You know, maybe doing that, you know, like newsletters and whatever, but maybe for the students, you know, in the first day, week of school type of thing, having assemblies of some sort about the policy with that kind of undertone too, of like, this is good, they're going to be good for mental health type of thing, having some of the other administrators that help them focus with that, maybe contribute to that type of presentation, but that might be a good grade level. You know, everyone comes for the assembly, and this is the new policy, this is how we're enacting it, and these are the rules, and who, you know, rules, expectations, and, you know, repercussions and things like that. So then it's like, everyone attended this, it's a mandatory assembly, everyone saw it, and the parents get the newsletter, but the kids had it in person, and, you know, the staff's there too. For the
communication to the parents, almost ready to go out, and they're working on that.
Yeah.
And then they have class meetings with all the students in the beginning of the school year. I've already seen one of the presentations that they're doing on this, and yeah, this is definitely a focus for the students.
Cool.
So Rich, here's how I see it. You really got to look at this at a 3-year window. Each year that goes by, the noise is going to dial down less because you're going to have kids that never experienced an internet-connected device in high school. So right now, you're really, this is affecting sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Right?
This is going to affect every student in K-12.
No, that's what I'm saying.
No, he's just talking about, because the law is now rolling out.
Correct.
This is the cold turkey year.
Yeah. Right.
We have to talk about programs.
Incoming freshmen have never had a cell phone in the high school. So as each year passes, that noise is going to get less and less. So I would really look at this in a 3-year window and focus on that group, because once that flushes out, those incoming kids never had a cell phone in high school.
Yeah. No, it's a good
But it's
point.
not just a high school environment, this is also in middle schools, this
I'm
is in
talking about our
elementary
district.
schools.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But I
I mean,
think
but
you-
you're still going to have the pushback
Yeah.
in terms of that, and those kids coming from, because, you know, I know 4th graders who have cell phones,
That's crazy.
who are completely internet enabled and not policed. So this is going to be a continual issue until people get used to it.
And that,
however long that takes.
yeah, and I think that's, if I understand, that's the point you're making, that this is year one for what's going to be a multi-year, just getting sort of refocused again and being able to separate from the distraction in the phone.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
use the
the
cold
incoming
turkey.
freshman
Cold turkey is it 12th
never had a cell
program?
phone in the school.
Yeah,
The sophomores and the juniors and the seniors have.
correct.
So they're gonna be the most affected right now.
Right. Yep. Okay.
And there may be a lot more flip phones being purchased in the state of New Jersey.
Yes.
Take stock now.
You know, interesting, I did want to point one thing out.
Flip phone stuff.
So we received this policy and regulation update, and then a week later, we received another update. And there's just a few minor changes that I will incorporate into the second reading, and you'll see what they are in the second reading. Most of those are anywhere that you see where it says principal or designee, it now says superintendent or designee, which will be the principal. But and then there's also language in here about software. There are schools that, again, from a business perspective, like people, cell phones or flip phones, right? That could be a market now.
Oh, yeah.
There's also a market for schools are looking at software that you can put on a student's phone through geofencing technology. It just doesn't work when you come to school. You can turn it on all you want, but it won't get on. It won't connect.
Right.
You know, there's pros, and so there's a little bit of language in here to reference that as well. That will be additional. So, just wanted you to be aware there will be a few changes in the second reading.
This mandate is gonna look, I suspect, my opinion, is not gonna be in this current form back there for a very long time. It's gonna adapt, because something's gonna happen, and Trenton is Trenton, and I think you might see a couple iterations of this.
But again, I think the intent is good.
Oh, it's
The
great.
intent is that this
Oh,
happens.
it's a gift.
You barely
They don't
ever
realize
get
it.
something right the first time.
Brian?
Do you have any intention to implement geofencing
We
in
don't.
our district?
No, and then again, the research we've done on it, it might be something in the future if they improve the technology, but the research we've done on it is kids are pretty industrious and they find a way to just take the software off their phone.
Yeah,
The software's off their phone, it doesn't
I have
matter.
no idea.
and it would raise questions to me like the people who do have exceptions, how, you know, can you
Delineate.
give them exceptions to the
Again,
geofencing?
You're absolutely right, there's no, like controls for that. It's done individually on the phone. And, you know, if a parent owns a device, what right do we have to tell them they have to put a software product on it that would
I
restrict?
think that was in one of the FAQs
Yeah.
about that, and it was like, no, you can't use that as your solution to no devices or whatever. Is locking them out doesn't count. But that needs to one of the four. You know, locked here, or
yeah.
off. It did.
I think that would raise a lot of things that you'd want to discuss at the board level.
Yes.
So we have the first reading obviously is on for next week for action. It will take 2 readings, obviously, for it to become policy. The resources are there. You have the opportunity to go look at that, kind of prepare questions, ask questions for this first read conversation for next week.
Actually, now that we're discussing that, these minor changes that are on here, I can actually incorporate them for the agenda for next week. And then, so the first reading will have that language, and then it won't change between first and second reading unless we decide we want it to. So I'll make sure that gets put in.
Okay, Rich?
Is there a different policy that pertains to flip phones? Like the fact that you can't just use them?
From a policy perspective, no, the law didn't address that, really. I think, but from a practical standpoint, in the regulation, I think there was.
Right,
So
I would say you want to address that, they shouldn't be able to have necessarily a flip phone out on the
Yeah.
desk
Yeah.
either.
Yes.
In fact, our old, 2 years ago, Strauss Esme, I'll call it, didn't have this, obviously the law wasn't in place. And it was written in pager.
Pager,
technology.
yeah.
Right, pagers.
Beepers and pagers.
And it probably did kind of address what a flip phone would be.
And the law does say you can be more restrictive than what the law requires.
Yeah, that's
Right.
just the baseline.
So the baseline, you can say there are school districts that are not going to allow them on buses to and from school. You know, or they're not going to allow them in after school or before school. And that might be for a district that has before or after care, and they don't want it as a distraction in those environments either. But the bare minimum is start of school day to the end of school day. That's where we're at now. And then if we wanted to say in our policy, again, it doesn't even have to be in a policy. You could say it's a school rule. It's a distraction to have a flip phone out. You're not allowed to have it out. here it is, it's in the disciplinary code, it's listed, and, you know, we notify the students, we notify the parents, they know what the consequences are if they have it out. So we can always make more rules restricting what allows us to run our school districts.
Rich, you might maybe take, if you're thinking about that, is to take the whole, set the pages that were strict through, that's our current policy, right?
Yeah, that was like a really old terminology, it was electronic
Right,
communication.
right.
recording
But if there's
devices.
something in that that you think is worth surviving,
Yeah.
you could bring it up.
I think as we talked about more than once, I think this is going to be a year that we're going to try to comply with the state law. And we're going to figure out the logistics of how this is going to work and then learn from that. And then maybe add some things or modify some things later on, as a result of that experience.
All right, if we could move forward into finance, facilities, and transportation. Katie, if you could maybe just walk us through these items, explaining either what's there or what's to come so that folks are in a position to vote next week.
Sure thing. I think I'm going to also give a brief overview of a few, like, finance in general, facilities in general, transportation, because I think that's what we would normally do this time of year in committee structure. So finance related, we're working to close out the fiscal year last year, 25-26, because June has already ended. So we're looking to close out last fiscal year in preparation for our audit. Our auditors are coming out the week of August 3rd through the 7th. So when they're on site, they'll do their on-site testing. So just so everybody is aware, we are behind the scenes looking to close out last year and get ready for the audit. As far as facilities, the district office HVAC, what's going on in this building, our anticipated substantial completion will be August 14th, so about a month left. They're still working on some of the inside ductwork, and you'll see a few new vents in here, possibly for August meeting, finished. So just let everybody know that that's on track and on course, and shouldn't see too much disruption in this room. Also on the agenda, I'm just going to jump around a little bit because this is capital project related. 10.3 is related to Pratt Songen Architects. In preparation for giving the board kind of a strategic capital project plan, I want to have Pratt Songen Architects come out and do a HVAC assessment at North Hunterdon. That building in particular has had multiple iterations of additions over the years. And so there's original steam boilers, there's also RTUs, there's unit ventilators, there's different mechanics all over the building. And we just want to make sure we do like a holistic assessment of what we've done, what we need to focus on, and what should be incorporated in short and long-term capital projects. So this is a nominal dollar amount. I think it's about $14,000 for them to come out and really look at every single thing, give us an itemized list of every area of the building, what it covers, and whether it's in need of repair, replacement, or if it's already been done.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
So, obviously, they're our architect, but they're going to bring the engineer.
Correct.
So the mechanical engineer. Do you know if it's the same engineer that they've been working with in the district?
I would
On
imagine
previous-
so, but I can ask. I
Okay.
would imagine so.
Yeah, just because the efficiency would be, because they would know all the changes that have come
Yes.
in place, and if not, why?
And they
just
worked
ask that
very
question.
closely with Honeywell when we did all of that HVAC work, so
Right.
I would imagine too that they have the same individuals working on
Right.
this that they had.
I mean, if
throughout
there
all
was
the
a change,
projects.
it would be for a reason, like something,
Right.
non-performance or something, but yeah. It'd be interesting just to see what they say.
Mhm. And then transportation related, we've been having multiple meetings with Hunterdon County ESC, that's the Ed Services Commission with Hunterdon County. They orchestrate and coordinate our transportation for the district, so we've talked to them most recently with our ESY, how they had some day one challenges. There was some storms over that weekend on July 3rd, and kind of how they handled the first day of ESY and how we can do better for the start of the school year. Making sure that all the routes are adequately staffed and doing trial runs before the school starts. So they have that planned for August. We're also going out to bid for our athletic runs this year. That's something we haven't done in the past, but we've had some discussions about it. In the past, ESC, they have their own transportation fleet, and so their route costs are the cheapest for our athletic runs. However, they have a hard time staffing those runs, and you've seen that reflected in some of the athletic issues that we've had in the past year. So although it is more expensive sometimes to go out with other vendors, we are looking at that option. So we're going out to bid, and we're gonna see what kind of responses we get for those athletic runs. And obviously, we'll go with the cheapest vendor, but as long as they can perform and make sure we get those filled.
Efficiency.
Right, so it's a combination of both. And also, we posted the waiver forms that are posted in Aspen. We had those discussions with ESC, how we're gonna handle that and how we can maybe shift our routing as we receive those waivers. So currently, we have the due date of those waiver forms to be the day before school starts, so that we can adequately, make adjustments to the routing within the first few weeks of the school year. But I'll have more information on attendance, participation at the August meeting.
When does that communication go to, like, when would you start to see action on that? Waiving, I guess.
So we're going to communicate that to the parents probably 2 weeks before school.
Okay.
That's a time frame, but I think if we try to do it too early, it gets lost in the summer shuffle. If you do it right before school, it's very hectic, so we're going to try to time it so that we'll get good participation in it. But the actual waiver form, G was able to put it into Aspen, so when a parent logs into their student portal, they'll be able to, they have a bunch of forms they have to fill out, like the acceptable use and all those things. This will be one of them.
Oh.
That will be an optional
Okay.
form they can fill out.
So it's right in front of their face. So they have to.
Yes, it should be the easiest way to get it.
Right.
I think a related question, but is there any reason parents yet would have gone into Aspen? I mean, unless they're just, proactive or something, or?
Yes, they're starting to look, they're starting for senior park.
Oh, parking.
Senior park.
Okay.
So we wanted to get the form in there so that all the, I don't know if either school opened it up yet, but they're going to open it up soon if they haven't. And that form had to be in there because that's also an option for them to waive transportation to get their parking fee back.
Also, eighth grader, incoming ninth grader.
Yeah.
Sports.
And sports.
There's communications, things
I
like
was in
that.
it yesterday.
I was in it,
Tomorrow, so.
Okay. Sorry, Katie.
No, you're fine. So I already touched on a few of these things, but again, Rich spoke about the regionalization efficiency program. That's the grant acceptance. Again, the next step will be after we accept the funds, execute the contract from the state, and then go out to RFP for the vendor that we choose for the completion of that grant. The ESCA, those are entitlement grant funds, so the state tells us what our entitlement funds are for that grant. I anticipate we may have the IDA fund entitlement for next week, so you may see the addition of that item in addition to the ESCA grant. IDA funds are related to special services. ESCA grant funds are for the title funds. Brett Thompson Architects, we discussed that 10.3. 10.4, we do have Hill Wallach approved from our insurance carrier to provide legal counsel for an insurance matter. We were told that we need to appoint them for that matter, so we are asking the board to approve them at the rates for those services. 10.5, we had the information the day before the meeting last month, so this is kind of a renewal for 26, 27, but unfortunately missed the deadline for our last meeting. So just to kind of give a summary to this, we go out to, it's not really an RFP process, but we go out for quotes for our liability insurance coverage every 3 years. As a member of NJSIG, you have a 3-year renewal process. So we had 3 competitive quotes from other GIFs. We had NJSIG, which is the current vendor that we have right now for liability insurance, but also PIP-NJ and SAFE. So this is the lowest insurance renewal for our liability insurance. It was actually flat. We were quoted 1% from the other fund and 9% from the third fund. So we are asking the board to recommend approval for NJSIG for another 3-year term for our liability insurance coverage. Any questions? And again, the banners for the Booster Club sponsorships, those are typical this time of year for anticipation of fall sports. We're hoping to have both of those for next week. If not, we'll just have it at the August meeting. We'll have plenty of time to approve those. Training and travel, bills list, all of that will be attached next week. I may pull the June financials only because this time of year we have a lot of entries to make for June, and sometimes it makes sense for us to have June and July at the August meeting. But we'll see if we can get that on.
Questions or clarifications?
I have
Rich?
Rich, you mentioned, I guess, with people parents were going into the portal for senior parking. Have you sent any communication out regarding the transportation waiver and gotten any feedback back on that yet?
No. Like I just said, I think sending the communication that we want to send out for all parents, if this is available,
Yep.
I think is probably more well suited closer to the beginning of school year where people are starting to pay attention to it.
Okay.
But the seniors will know about it because it is part of their
Correct.
senior
Yeah.
parking application process.
That makes sense. 10.4, are we going to be briefed on that in executive?
The board has
So I'm
been,
not sure.
the board has been briefed in executive on that matter.
I might need a refresher. I don't remember what it is, to be honest with you. And then the banners, 10.6 and 10.7, somebody better proofread them this year. Remember last year? I called the typo.
On banner,
What's that?
on the banner.
Yeah. So, just
A lot of those were submitted directly. from
Yeah,
the-
you might want to contact the sponsor.
Yeah. The person paying.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
we
there
don't
was a
make,
typo in there.
we don't make the banners.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
provide them
Yeah. Some of the
with the
people-
grommets,
That's
yeah.
it. That's all.
And prepare your service fee for that. Any other questions or clarifications? All right, that brings us to community relations and student affairs. I don't know if we have anything right now, Tara, specific. I know we sort of
Yeah.
talked about communication efforts regarding the Bloomsbury referendum, which is sort of in that direction. Anything on delegates reports at this point, Heather?
Well, our new delegate, well, I'm county, but state, the call for any resolutions is September 11th.
11th.
Yeah. So if there's any resolution that we'd like to submit as a board, we have till then to submit it, and Stephen would do that. And then on Hunterdon County, exciting, our first county meeting's going to be on Monday, September 28th, and it's going to be hosted down at our new Polytech. The culinary arts are going to provide the dinner, and it's going to be a panel, superintendent panel, discussing advancing student achievement and curriculum alignment. So I hope everyone will sign up and come, and Dr. Burgess is going to be one of our panelists, and I think Del Val and Reddington, or, I'm trying, yeah, and since we were speaking about, the articulation, this is, I think, going to be a real timely and important one, the K-8s, and when we're talking about like math programs and that. So I'm hoping a lot of the school boards all participate, and I look forward to the discussion that's going to be held.
That first one is also pretty big.
It is. And I'm excited that we're going to be able to showcase Polytech. I was on the board that brought that with Fran Groger back in 2017, 2018. So it's been a long time coming. So it'll be nice for the program to be able to be highlighted, and then we'll have the round table there. So
What day was it again?
Monday, September 28th.
28th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know, Tara, I know you and I have been contacted. Is
Oh,
that the
yes.
October
That's going to
meeting?
be in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was outreach to Tara and I to participate on the October panel in terms of just board management, board governance, and just effective practices. So, I think kudos to us as a board for being, for the contact, and certainly I look forward to the opportunity to work with Tara.
And that's going to be in with Somerset County, so
that's right, it's a
panel
joint
we're going to be on, so
Yep.
it will be, board communication, and that type, so everyone's invited to that, and that'll be out down in Somerset County, and I'll get you the details for that.
Okay, any other questions or clarifications? All right, that brings us to a call for a motion and second to adopt resolution 072126-1 for an executive session to discuss matters reflected in the attached resolution. The board expects to be in executive session for approximately 30 minutes. And upon return to public session, action will be taken. All right, can I get a motion? Motion, Andrea, second. Nicole, all in favor?
Aye.
Second. Abstentions or noes? None? Okay. a motion and a second to reconvene public session. Can I get the motion? Oh, Dan, that was quick. Thank you. Dan's got it and Tara's got the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed or abstentions? None? Okay. Old and new business. Any updates? Any new business? Any old business? I feel like we've touched upon a lot of our in progress and old items.
Are we still considering going to a second public?
Oh, yeah, that's,
Is that,
Yeah,
we're still
old
talking
business.
about that, or where
Well, I think that the intent with that was to ask the policy folks to take a look at our bylaws for the structure of the meeting. And I think that was the place. I think we had done a preliminary look at what was there. I just can't remember what the bylaws said. And I know there's been some historical change in there as well.
Very at the beginning,
yeah.
and then
Two
Yeah,
very
one
right
at the
end,
beginning
yeah.
and
I
one-
think
one
we
on agenda items and one on non-agenda items.
Correct.
Right.
The first one being agenda items only, the second one
Right.
being
Correct.
anything.
Well, so I think we determined that we have a policy in place right now that lays out specifically an agenda that does not include that.
Correct.
So at a
I
minimum,
think
we
so.
have to revise a policy
Yeah.
that lays out a new agenda, or be maybe perhaps a little more clever and be less prescriptive about exactly, what the policy
Right,
says
right.
you have to do. But I think otherwise, so we haven't done that in the
Yeah.
ad hoc committee.
Right.
I'll say that right away. Otherwise, I think it's this tension between length of the meeting.
Right. And we haven't looked at what the stress estimate one, like, we'll revert back to that policy, and we don't know
I
what
have
that
it.
specifically says.
And so,
Yeah.
right, our
It's
current
been
policy
saying-
was, I think, the exact language of stress.
Oh,
estimates.
okay.
When the school board brought that over,
Okay.
then we're gonna go back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Alright.
community member who brought that up sits on a board that's one of our K-8 districts, and then Andrea, and I don't know if Clinton had it, but
They
at
did
least
when I was
two of
on
them, yeah, so at least 3 of our districts do have that format in their boards, so I don't know if we want to look at, and Franklin too, so if maybe we look at that, but I think we should adopt what is consensus,
I'm okay with either way. I mean, I can tell you I've lived through both of them, and when you do the first one for agenda items only, the reason we went to one single one was that people got mad because they had to wait until now
yeah.
Right, yeah. I
to bring up a
understand
new
that.
topic, and they're like, you made me stay here till 11:30 at night, why couldn't I have spoke at the other one? And then it becomes, so, it's both sides,
Can
there's a
both
leg
be
either
just
way.
general? Can they both be general? They don't have to be specified agenda and non-agenda, or?
It can be, but then you run into where we had situations where people would come up and say the same things over and over.
Over.
Can the second one be before executive?
Yeah, we did it before executive.
Yeah, and it would be, I think, yeah.
Okay.
It's just that sometimes, still are meetings.
Yeah.
Because they're wading through all of the
Yeah.
topics.
Okay.
Okay, but I guess, yes, we should have the policy ad hoc continue to just sort of look at that. What do we have in either bylaws or policy?
You could move just your one session to, at the very beginning of the meeting, so people knew generally that they would need to be here by, 7:20 or so, or 7:15 to be part of it. If it was a little earlier before we had anything but, right after the flag salute, then it's a little more predictable at what time it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also recall part of the suggestion was that after hearing the discussion on curriculum and policy and finance, that's where folks might want to weigh in a second time. So, I do feel like I don't know that you'll satisfy everyone with any one configuration, but,
I never will.
yeah, okay. But yes, thank you for the reminder, it is kind of an open item.
Yeah, so we should try to put it on the agenda.
Yep.
Just the acknowledgement that we do have a few kind of burning, get them done as soon as we can issues.
Right.
This one.
Yeah, that one we can prioritize and,
Yeah.
the have to get dones for September, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for new business? All right, hearing nothing, can I get a call for a motion and second to adjourn? Wait, Rich had the hand. I think I heard Andrea for the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?
All right.
None? All right, it's a wrap.